All right. Welcome back. This is gonna be a big one, big episode. Um, Finally got to it. Rewatched 28 days later and 28 weeks later. I had so much going on. I still have so much going on, but hopefully it will all calm down soon. If you guys have noticed, I have still been putting episodes of the 1940 Superman cartoon. I did see the new Superman. I will do a review videos about those soon, shortly. There's a lot to talk about that one, but today we're going to talk about, the 28 trilogy. So 28 days, 28 weeks, 28 years later. It's pretty much, we're going to go through all three of them. Non-spoiler and spoiler. There's a lot, so it's going to be a big episode this time. I don't know how long each one of them will be, but it's going to be a big one. We're going to go over a lot in both episodes. So, but we will get back to the 1940s cartoon, after this. I think currently right now it's like on episode 4 or 5 for the reviews, and then it's like 5 or 6 is coming out. I don't know. I just know that there's 2 more coming out. So there's going to be like a little break, and then, obviously it'll be these videos. And then we'll jump back into it. But let's start off with 28 days later. Honestly, it was, for its age, it was good. It gave me a lot of what am I? Resident Evil vibes. The Resident Evil movie, live action movie, with, I can't think of that actor, but you'll know what I'm talking about. She wears like a red dress. I think her name is Mila. I could be wrong. Let me look. But pretty much, so it gave me a little bit of vibes for that part. And then it kind of just did its own thing per se. And it is Mila. Okay, that's what I thought. I had to look that up. So anyway, seeing Resident Evil and then seeing this, I've already seen this, but I didn't see this until I found out about 28 years later. So I was very, very late to the game. So I saw 28 days later, and then I saw 28 weeks, then 28 years, and then I rewatched the other 2 again, the first 2 again. Like I said, for its age, it was good. I noticed that it was, which I did a little bit of research on. The film was recorded on handhelds and stuff. I was also reading that at some point they lost funding, but then they got funding again. Long story short, it eventually got filmed and it eventually finished. And it had 3 different endings. I think one of them, the original one, was cut. The one that we saw in theaters, or in Britain, UK, whatever we're calling it. When they saw it in theaters, they had a different ending, but then there's also another ending. I don't know anything about that third ending. But yeah, it's, how do I say, it's it's zombies, but not zombies. It's raw. It's it's gritty. It's dark. Dark, and even in a sense of where it takes you. You know what I mean? It's not just more so of you're worrying about zombies, but then you're also worrying about, in this post-apocalyptic era, you're also worrying about humans, and dangerous humans and whatnot. It's the film overall looks grainy, but like I said, that's from how they filmed it and from when the time it was released. focuses on social collapse. And by the way, it's in the UK or in Britain, whichever you prefer to call it. So it's there. It's isolated. From how they were saying, it ended up in, I think it was Paris and New York, but then you really don't hear about that ever again. Like it still got quarantined and isolated. It from this like it gave you. It kind of reminded me of like a quiet place in I Am Legend. Like I don't know if you guys remember that. Like if you made a noise or if you're bleeding. What was the other thing? I noticed lights, anything like that. Like the zombies came after you. Um, it, I don't know. Like it's the best way I can really explain it. Like for what it is, I feel like it was good for its time. You know what I mean? It's probably one of those pioneer films that zombie films weren't a big thing, and then they became a big thing again. And then this was one of the ones that kind of helped push it a little bit further, along with Resident Evil and a couple others. It's just like a different take on zombies and whatnot. Like I was saying before, it's not really zombies, but it's zombies. They call it rage. Rage. They're infected with rage and they can't control it and whatnot. Which is it's pretty cool, and it's a different take on it. Um, it's very traditional and horror, suspense, and drama. You know what I mean? You were kind of on your toes, but then you kind of like, for me, I wasn't really on my toes because I've already seen it, but it was also from like a different time. Like maybe if I saw this when it first originally came out, I'd probably get that suspense and drama, and also I would have been a little bit more younger to it. You know what I mean? Less of a tolerance to like movies like this. You know what I mean? Especially when you play Call of Duty Zombies, you grow your tolerance of like scary stuff, and or you'd watch continuous. I think there's like 9 Resident Evil movie films and a whole bunch of other stuff. Like you kind of just build up a tolerance to stuff like this. You had like Insidious, and you had The Conjuring, and you had this and that, and you just build up a tolerance over time. So like you can sense that suspense and drama was there, but in that instance of me rewatching it, I didn't feel that, which is good, in my personal opinion. And let's see. For it, for how dark it was, it did end on a high note, which was a plus. You know what I mean? Wasn't really expecting that. Uh, I'll get into a little bit of that of like the original ending in the spoiler review, but in this one it ended on a high note, which was very good. It also kind of left you to want to see more, in my personal opinion. But it is what it is. I don't think we get the next one until like like another 10 years or so, or maybe less. I don't know. It's been a minute. Let's see what else. I think it pretty much covers up that one. Let's see. I did take a little bit of notes, so give me a second here. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers that one. Let's get into 28 weeks later. So in 28 weeks later, obviously, time has passed. A lot of time has passed. Well, not like a lot, but like time has passed. So it's set in the same setting, post-apocalyptic Britain, UK, whatever we're calling it, and it follows the same storyline of the rage virus or the zombie virus, whatever we're calling it, but more so the aftermath. it kind of has its own. It has no relation to the original film. It has its own storyline, its own characters. From what I could tell, everything was a little bit more original, a little bit more emotional. In It was more like, not even like, you didn't have the survival part of it like the original had. Like the first one had more about survival between zombies and humans. This one didn't really have that. It kind of just, it was more the brighter of the two. Because you're in the aftermath. It's months have passed, and things have settled down per se. The quarantine is actually quarantined, and there's rebuilding going on, repopulating, stuff like that. But it does keep some of the rawness of it. You know what I mean? I don't know if they use the same cameras. I assume they did. It kind of had that that grittiness to it, like the first one did. To me, like not as gritty, but a little bit gritty. Let me look while we're talking. It looks like, I think I put this in my notes. Yeah, so this was also filmed in handhelds as well. Did they give that more gritty, more intimate experience and more intimate scenes, scenery from a viewer point of view. Let's see. There was a lot of going back to the emotions and stuff like that. This was a lot more emotional about morality, trust, and just human error, I guess you can say, because it's more in depth, like compared to the first one, and you kind of feel bad for some of the characters in it compared to the original one, where you didn't really feel anything. It was just kind of like just in your face. Here's this, here's that, and you're fucked. You gotta just fucking deal with it. This one's more like you kind of connect a little bit more with the characters, and you kind of felt bad for some of the characters, and then you kind of hope for some of the characters to, survive and get through. Unlike the other one, it was just kind of just like, if it happens, it happens. You know what I mean? Shit happens. It was a little bit more. How do I put? Kind of like society driven. You know what I mean? Like in the first one, it was more like you had this sole character, and in this one, it was more like you have this group. You know what I mean? Like that was mostly focused on, and yeah. So I mean, it was a little bit better. You know what I mean? There's a film here remind me of. I can't think of it. I don't know if it was like, I forgot what film it was, but I don't know if it was this film or if it was like a whole different film that this one reminds me of. The first thing that kind of like popped in my head, it was like, this was like a zombie version of Mad Max. You know what I mean? Granted, that wasn't like in the desert and there's cars and they're fighting over resources, and this one wasn't really on point with that. This was this was more about at the rebuilding part of things, but it had a little bit of that vibe of Mad Max, of like post-apocalyptic setting, if that makes sense. Let's see. I think that covers all of that. Oh, the other morale thing was it wasn't human error or like trust or anything. It was the more so of like the human choice on getting to the end result of who and what survives, if that makes sense. Like, if how do I explain it? It's like one sole person, decides, who gets to live and who gets to die kind of concept, if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got on that one. Um, I think. Let me look at my notes. Oh, this one was a little bit more slower paced, it felt like. It had that, that really strong opening, but then it had like a slower pace. I think that was because they were doing like a little bit more character development in this one, because it's a whole new like story, a whole new set of characters, a whole new set of actors, and whatnot. So that was the other thing I noticed. It was a little bit more slower than the original one. The original, or the first one. The first one was just like kind of just like, it started off with a big heavy start, and then it kind of like have a slow start, and then it just was like build up, build up, build up, build up. You know what I mean? Until all the way to the end. It was kind of just one bam, 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 bam. This one was kind of like started big, and then kind of just went in until like, I don't know, like you're 3/4 in, then it finally gets a little bit more exciting again. If that if you can track along with that, and if it makes sense, to where it was exciting, and then it wasn't. It was kind of like character building, which is fine, but it's just like, for me, it was just like, you could have picked up the pace just a slight bit. Like, you let the film breathe too much. You know what I mean? But yeah, that was one thing that I noticed, is between the first and the second one, between days and weeks later. It was the first one was more fast paced. This one was a little bit more slower. And then finally, let me scroll through my notes. The Big Kahuna, 28 years later. Now, this one, obviously, a lot of time has passed, and completely different setting, completely different set of characters, actors. It had a lot. This one caught my attention the most. Like, when I took my son to see this, like, I was like, dude, this is good. This is really good. Like, it's like a whole different take on zombies. It took you on a whole different kind of, like, for me, a mental and emotional journey. It even had a lot of emotion to it, because you felt bad for this one character because of what happens. Long story short, someone dies, and you're like, fuck, that kind of hurt me. You know what I mean? What if it happened to me? Type of stuff. Or what if it happened to like someone, like they lost a family member, or etc., or they lost like a really close friend. Same concept. You felt bad for that person or persons, and overall just reinvents the whole world per se. Psychologically, mentally, and emotionally, with everything that goes on. And it was very what I mean by like psychologically and mentally, especially, is like what I mean by that is like it was very unpredictable. Like, there was a couple times I looked at my son. I'm like, what? And he was like, what? He's like, I don't know. Like, it was that exciting. You know what I mean? To where it piqued your emotions and piqued your interest, and then you were intrigued to keep going, and like all the way to the end of the film. Like, it even got to like the fucked up, really dark parts, like the first one, but this was a little bit more darker, more fucked up to me personally, and it was just like, damn. Like, holy, like I wanted more. Like, when the film ended, I wanted more. And from what I'm understanding, there is going to be more They kind of left it open to, let's say that if this is the trilogy, they left it open for another trilogy or another single stand or film, that's connected to this one, because this one kind of was slightly. There was one tidbit thing that I noticed between this film and the first film. There was one minor connection between the two, but other than that, this was it felt like another standalone. Like I said, it was completely different. The zombies are full-fledged zombies. Like in The Walking Dead, you have your slow ones and your fast ones, or your smart ones, I guess you could say. That pulled some of that in that too, which was really cool to see its own version of it. Um, there's a lot of layers to it. Kind of like not really like checks and balances, but like more so of like, I don't know how to explain it. Like not just like the gore and the horror, but then you had like the grief and the mortality and family. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like that kind of like checks and balances of that. Like it was perfectly, in my personal opinion, it was nicely balanced. Like you didn't have too much of one or the other. Um, let's see. And then, like I said, there's a huge cliffhanger that leaves at the end, and overall, I enjoyed the fuck out of this. Like I kind of wanted to see it again, but I really really enjoyed it. The it was kind of it was like a poetic horror, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Like it was a genuine, heartfelt scare, I guess you could say. Um, it was just, yeah. I mean, there was a lot. You know what I mean? Which we'll get into the spoiler version, but there was a lot to it. Um, you know, one thing I did notice is that it's like it wasn't really rebuilding anymore. It was rebuilt, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And then you kind of just had to deal with, it was kind of like, it is what it is. We've rebuilt in our end, and if we need to go outside of outside of our bubble, we'll go and do that. You know what I mean? But we have to be careful when we go and do that. Um, Man, yeah. I mean, it was good. It was good. Um, I mean, I know most people don't really like listening to Rotten Tomatoes, but Rotten Tomatoes really actually probably got this one right. I actually looked it up to see what it's at. Last time I saw it, it was like at 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was like praised for its ambition, and, emotional depth and raw execution, which I highly agree with all of that. You know what I mean? I feel like I could have put in, the unpredictability as well, and um, the like the emotional and psychological roller coaster. You know what I mean? That really like hits you right in the right spot, and like I said, wanted you to keep wanting more, and which I really enjoyed the most. I really enjoyed it, and if I had the time, I probably would have saw it again. You know what I mean? But I just didn't have the time. I barely even had the time to go see Superman recently, and I barely had the time to finally even get to this. So I mean, you see where I'm getting at. But like as soon as it comes out on, whenever it comes out digitally, it's one of those films that I definitely am gonna pay for it. Usually I like just stream it, but I'm gonna pay for it. It was one of those. Very good, very good, hands down. I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, I don't know if it's still in theaters. If it is still in theaters, go and see it. I know some places do the matinee where if you go before 4 p.m. or whatever time it is, you tickets really cheap. Or on certain, by us it's like on certain I think like Mondays or Tuesdays you can get like go see a movie cheaper than usual. Go and see it. You know what I mean? I highly recommend you go and see it. You don't even need to see the first two. I just rewatched the first two because I just have OCD like that. Like I literally watched the first two and then watch the third and then watch the first two again just for this review videos. But that's just how my brain works. I have no control over that. I just do things in order, and if it's out of order and it's not consistent, it fucks me over. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, as soon as you have the availability to go see it, go fucking see it. Highly recommend it. 28 years later, like there's one thing that people will complain that, oh, you know, this you know, that's probably the one thing I will spoil. They do have male genitals or a male dick or a male cock or, you know, a male penis on a scene, but it's not like in your face. You know what I mean? It's just there. You know, like usually like as my son was growing up, if there was like a sex scene that was coming up or something that I knew would make him uncomfortable watching with me, I would just tell him to look away. But it didn't even make him uncomfortable. You know, and granted, he's a little bit older now, and, you know, we can have those conversations, me and him can have those kind of conversations, but it just wasn't, like, there. You know, my sister told me about it when me were right before me and my son were going to say this. She's like, oh, yeah, there's going to be a big dick on the screen, and it's just going to be in your face, and it just wasn't there. Like, it's there, but it's not there, like she was complaining about. But, you know, even take that out, it was so good. So good. So good. That's all I can really say. The best out of all three, and I hope there's more. That's all I can really say. And what even made it, you know, better than the first two, it wasn't on handheld. From what I was understanding, it was filmed on iPhone 15s. I don't know how true that is, but the way that it looked, the way that the filming made you feel a little bit more intimate with it and all aspects is, you know, because of that, you know, because of how they filmed it. It wasn't done in a normal type of sense, you know, which is very cool. Like I said, I don't know how true it is, if they really filmed the whole thing with Apple iPhone 15s or not, but they kind of changed it from handhelds and it was to that, but it had that still an intimate feeling, but it wasn't gritty. You know what I mean? Like the grain, or not gritty, but grainy, if that makes sense. Like the first two. Like the first one was really grainy, you could tell. And then the second one kind of a little bit better with the graininess. You know, times change, technology gets better, but this one was less grainy, and it still had that intimate feel of, you know, it was filmed with a handheld, but in this sense it was filmed with an iPhone handheld, obviously, or iPhone. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, highly recommend you guys see this one's best, not like top best zombie film that I've ever seen, but it's up there. It's really up there. Leaves you wanting more for sure. But I think that pretty much covers the non-spoiler portion of these three films, this trilogy. You know, like I said, I hope there's more. In the next video, we're gonna like literally break down. You know, I'll go through scene by scene for each piece, and we'll go over everything together. And you know, you guys heard it here. You know, the third one is the best one. Years later is the best one. I'm probably gonna say it again in the next video. So, hope you guys enjoy this. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.